Loud slam behind his back makes Chris jump and almost drop the single source of light present in the room. Candle between his fingers on top of a candle holder, shaped like a dry rose, drips. Its flame flickering, the sudden movement. Inwardly, Chris complains about not being allowed to have a flashlight, or literally any other source of light more potent than it. But he'd known that this particular escape room was supposed to be harder than the rest. At the very least, the attendants had been kind enough to provide him with a matchbox and 3 matches. Nothing more, yet nothing less. He had an hour to solve the room and find his way out, and the candlestick was tall. He hoped to have no need for the matches at all. A long sigh escaped from his mouth, and the gush of breath killed the flame. "Darn it," he said, kneeling on the floor to place the candle there and lit it again. 2 matches left, he thought, cursing himself. With slow and methodical motions, Chris perused the room and its decoration. The antique furniture, rusty and broken in places, did add to the mood. So much so that he missed the pile of children's letter cubes piled on a side table. All of the letters on their sides had been carved out, except for 4. ELHP. He rearranged them to spell help, and noticed that the cubes had connecting symbols on the back. A couple of clues later, he was already opening the second door behind a burnt portrait. Chris was feeling confident in the dark, valiant even, and his reflection in the old ornamental mirror that hung from the wall no longer affected him when he passed by. At least, not much. He turned, ready to use the key he just found in a secret compartment to open a small chest, when he almost tripped over it. Chris froze. Had it moved? It hadn't been this close before. He stood in the middle of the room, as still as he could be, and looked around carefully. At first, Chris thought that the fear was creeping over his senses, that reality is morphed only inside his head. The table against the wall rubbed against his hip, and Chris wondered when he'd taken a step back. Moving to the side, his shoulder hit the old mirror when the thing should have been farther away. No, he thought. Something was wrong. He knelt quickly and fumbled with the key as he opened the small chest. The thing slid right between his fingers as he pushed the lid up. This wasn't his mind playing tricks on him. This was the room moving. This was the room shrinking. Chris was starting to hyperventilate when he took a look inside the chest, revealing to even glance at the wall. There was a knob. He peeked over his shoulder, alarmed, and raised the candle to illuminate the door. He hadn't realised that it lacked a handle on the side of it, and instead it had a smallish hole where the knob would fit. With the walls closing in around himself, the door loomed over him. Chris stood, candle in one hand and knob in the other, when he heard a second breath. A mere whisper strong enough to make the flame dance, and then die. He was suddenly engulfed in darkness, the knob, haphazardly thrown in the direction where the air had come from, bounced against something not quite as hard as a wall. Chris threw himself against the opposite side of the room, his trembling hands trying to light the candle with the second to last matchstick. "Please, please, please," he begged. Light returned to the room, but Chris didn't have time to be thankful to be able to see. He wasn't alone. There it stood, a tall, skeletal body, bald from head to toe, unblinking. Its eyes, twin pools of nothing, were fixated on Chris. "Get away from me," he cried, brandishing the fire. The thing remained still as Chris shook, screamed, and begged it to stay away. His eyes, travelling madly across the room, located the door's knob between the thing's bony feet. Its gaunt semblance revealed nothing, and its blurry eyes obscure whether he was following Chris's movements or not. He had to take the risk, Chris concluded. Maybe it was all part of the experience. It had to be, it just had to. A short giggle blurted out of his mouth, as he guessed that this was indeed something planned by the room's designer. The thought gave him some peace of mind, and with that he lunged forward. Things happened in a blur. Chris got a hold of the knob, firmly grasping it between his fingers, and then blinked tears and nervous sweat away. When his eyes opened again, the thing's feet had disappeared from his view. He heard more, and he saw the way it had laughed. An alien sound akin to broken glass pieces rubbing together. And then, darkness enclosed over them once more. There was one match left, and one would be enough. But Chris, pulled up on the floor, couldn't locate the candle. "Where is it?" he whispered to himself, trying not to think about it. The thing looming everywhere. His head crashed against something, and so did his feet. The walls kept closing in, and now the room was so small that furniture was pressing into everything. The table and the closet, a low chair, and a small chest. Chris had to feel his way around to get onto the table and avoid being crushed by the furniture. Up there, not sensing the other's presence, he lit the last match. It was there, hanging from the ceiling, smirking. His smile widened and showcased a mouth full of ragged and irregular teeth. And from this angle, it looked hungry. It held one finger against his lips, and then it spoke. Room for only one.
Subscribe today, or beware.